Any black person that proves to be against the community is not protected by the codes of conduct. While we honestly believe that with time we can create culture so inviting and warm that no one will ever even think of betraying the community, we also understand that these people are going to be out there. While we don't advocate feeding these people with any direct energy, positive or negative, we also don't feel like people should feel obligated to respect someone that doesn't respect them. A black person that is an enemy to his community is an enemy to him, to himself, and does not warrant the protection or respect of the community. To be clear, having a different opinion, no matter how odd or strange, does not make them a Sambo. I'm gonna read that again. I'm gonna read that again because make sure everybody get this. To be clear, someone having a different opinion, no matter how odd or strange, does not make them a Sambo. But somebody that is actively attempting to destroy the community is clearly a Sambo, and this rule is for them.
Estimate to ensure you what they were doing, just from 1500 to 1660 as an example. They shipped 5 million black folk out of Africa just to Central America down here to dig for gold and silver. And in 150 years, black folk with tools and sticks and stones, they dug out over 16,000 tons of silver and over 4,000 tons of gold. All that went back to Europe. Black folk at that point in time were producing almost 99% of all the sugar on earth, cotton, tobacco, anything else. They were building all the houses. They were the caulkers, builders. So what they did then, they started advertising in Europe. So anybody wants to get wealth, they go to America. You go to America, we guarantee you. We give you free land and free labor. And you would have to be an idiot to come to America. If we give you free land and free labor, you not get rich. So they began, and by 1710, somebody said, well, how are we going to control all these blacks? So the state of Virginia passed a law called meritorious manumission. Meritorious manumission then says that we will control blacks by building in an internal attitude inside of them to make them see things through our eyes, to make them white in everything but skin color. And what the meritorious manumission was passed by the state of Virginia in 1710 then said we will reward any black who gets very good at this. And so if any black person saves a white person's life, protects a white person's property, invents something that a white person can make money off of, or if he squeals on in the slave revolts, he would get freedom. Okay? And so I tracked from 1710 all the way up to 1860s. And out of over 200 some possible slave revolts, a black person squealed in every one of them.
A group's ability to compete is determined by its internal cohesiveness and self-interest. Black Americans must therefore build functional communities within which they can ethno-aggregate, then practice group economics and group politics. A functional community can be best defined as a grouping of people who come together and organize for their own self-interest rather than misdirected altruistic interest. Once built, whether based upon geographical boundaries, ethnic or racial commonalities, a community cares for the collective interest of its members. Building our own communities will allow Black Americans to become economically and politically competitive, but will also give us something we have never had, a chance to compete from the vantage point of our own physical space. That is important. From my own physical space, cultural views, resources, institutions, and history. For the first time, we will be free to organize and work in our own best interests rather than the interest of a universe of ethnic and class competitors. Historically, societies were built upon three institutions that served as pillars: the family, the church, and the community. True communities are communities of mind and physical structures within a space. Both are important, but no traditional society built on land that did not own or control has been successful or prospered. Hey, welcome back. Happy Monday. Welcome back to On the Shoulders of Giants. I am Joseph Ward, and we are continuing our reading and reviewing of Dr. Claude Anderson's powerful book, Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America. We are on chapter 3, building competitive communities. And I just read the first 2 paragraphs on page 63. So you saw the first clip, we're talking about the Sambos and meritorious manumission. But it's also going into this chapter when we're talking about building competitive communities. And as Dr. Claude Anderson is talking about, for the first time, Black people in America, Black people, foundational Black American ADOS, however you want to define it, Black people in America, we're coming together. We're together. We are united under a code of conduct, and we see the world through our own eyes, eyes that were never manipulated, well, eyes that are no longer manipulated by our oppressors, eyes that are not directed by our oppressors. The vision is ours. It's internalized. Well, it's an internal vision that we created for ourselves to be able to see the future that's best for us, and then we build and work for that future and make it happen for us. But we have to first become competitive. But to become competitive, we have to become a community. And so in this, we're going to talk about the difference between neighborhoods and communities, but we're also going to talk about the need to become competitive, but how Sambos can hold us back. And remember, the Sambo is no different than the Negro mindset that I'm always talking about. The Sambo is just another earlier word for the Negro mindset. I just call it the Negro mindset because I like to say that, but the Sambo is the same thing. All right. So let's jump back in it. Page 64, the second paragraph. All right. The practice of seeking territory for communities will intensify as more and more people from around the world immigrate to America. Listen, they come to America in search of a better quality of life, not to integrate with whites or to get along with Black Americans. They are coming to this country to get ahead economically and to find wealth and fortune. They commit themselves to competing with any and all groups economically and politically on behalf of themselves, their families, and their native countries. Typically, their initial destination is close or within Black neighborhoods. They have learned from official and unofficial sources that they can find great opportunities in Black neighborhoods. Within Black neighborhoods, ethnic immigrants expect to find the least expensive housing, lax enforcement of laws and regulation, and little business competition. They also find readily accessible customers, government assistance, easy access to elected officials, and employment opportunities. Though they are aware of the crime problem in Black neighborhoods, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. They find territory and build communities, right? So we are doing ourselves a disservice by not being united, but at the same time being allies for other groups of people who are not allies for us. And we're not united. So we are, I mean, if we let's just be real, right? When we're talking about the race game being competitive, we are losing the race game. Because we're not playing as a team. We're not a team. It seems like most of us don't even desire to be a team, but we have this need to help others and be allies to others. And I'm not saying we can't help anyone. I'm not saying we can't be friends with other people. I ain't saying that. But what I am saying is if we've never focused on helping ourselves, we're not good allies to anybody else anyway. Like Black America has to become something that is respected, something that is that has power. We need power. We need power. We need respect. We need resources. We need land. We need control of our own destinies. We need that. We need to be empowering ourselves. That's what we talked about in the last video. Empowering ourselves rather than trying to empower others. We can't really empower others. We can only really be a rooting voice, because I mean, we can continue to give our resources to others and empower others, because really that's what empowerment is making sure people have resources and knowing what to do with the resources. That's what empowerment is. So, in effect, we are helping others empower themselves because we're giving up our resources, but we're not doing that for ourselves. We're motivating ourselves and empowering other people. So we have to refocus ourselves. We have to see the bigger picture for ourselves. Black America has to build something for Black America. We have to before we help anybody else, we have to help ourselves, just like on the airplane. If something goes wrong and that mask come down, you got to put your mask on first. We've yet to put our mask on. Black America is on the airplane helping everybody else put that mask on. And we're on life support because we are literally struggling to put everybody else's mask on. And we haven't put our own mask on. And we wonder why everybody else is getting ahead of us. Work together. Work together. Come on. As ethics fill in business voids, as ethnics fill in business voids in Black neighborhoods with a modicum of success, they begin to practice ethno-aggregation. They bring in and aggregate their families and others from their native lands. They then develop more businesses in Black neighborhoods. As they capture territory, they establish powerful economies and political organizations using their ethnic culture, language, and religion as their common ground. We got to compete. You got to play as a team. So basically what he's talking about is other groups of people are coming into America, setting up in our neighborhoods, building themselves up, and then passing us. These other groups are passing us. Yes, they are. And sooner or later, we're going to be a class of people that can't get the same access to resources for the most part of us. Though those of us who take care of business, those of us who have the opportunities and be able to take care of business with that, and you're going to have some Black people who are good, and you're going to have way more Black people who are not good. It's going to get worse for the whole of Black America if we don't get our stuff together. We've done videos on it. 2050 is coming real soon. So now we're getting into why neighborhoods are not enough, right? Because we're talking listen to the language now. We in the beginning, we're talking about why we need communities. And now we're going to get into neighborhoods because we live in neighborhoods and neighborhoods are not enough, right? Neighborhoods are problematic for any group seeking empowerment. Unfortunately, most Black Americans live in neighborhoods, not communities. A community signifies commitment and the potential for power. Neighborhood does not. Webster's New Word Dictionary defines neighborhood as a vicinity or physical place where there are people living near one another. The concept of a neighborhood implies an area that is residential in nature with lesser wealth, power, and status than a community. The majority of Black Americans live in impoverished Black neighborhoods and spend approximately 95% of their annual disposable income with people who live outside of the neighborhood. They spend only 5% of their disposable income in Black neighborhoods. They spend 3% with non-Black owned businesses that are located in Black neighborhoods, but whose owners live outside of Black neighborhoods. Thus, only 2% of Black America's disposable income is spent in Black owned businesses in Black neighborhoods. It is impossible for any large population or neighborhood to be self-sufficient on only 2% of its income. By spending its disposable income in other groups, its businesses and communities, Black America impoverishes itself and impedes the growth of functional communities. That is not what competent winning teams do. You don't shoot yourself in the foot. But we're going to, as we get further into this, we're going to get more explanation of why we think the way we do. That's the reason for the Sambo clip. That's the reason for the Sambo clip in the beginning. So let's start to put the pieces together. Because the Sambo is the person who is destructive in nature and works against the best, works against the community. The best interest of the community is not the best interest of the Sambo. The Sambo is a selfish person who works only in its own self-interest. So, Sambo mindsets. So, and here we go. One benefit of Jim Crow segregation was that it forced blacks to build what could approximately be called quasi communities. Unlike neighborhoods where people getting into, when Dr. Anderson is describing what he calls quasi communities, and this is before segregation, before integration. So before integration, Dr. Anderson calls these quasi communities, and these quasi communities are the communities where Black people lived in before integration and Black people worked together. We had our own businesses, our own schools, our own churches, bus lines, all types of things Black people owned. Black people were more self-sufficient. Black people were actual, well, what he called quasi communities. Of course, they didn't have all the power and resources that they needed, but they had resources, and they had a they had the resources that they needed for the time. They had some power. Black people had some power within our own communities that we could use to aggregate up if we needed to. That's what ethnic aggregation comes in, to go to verticalize your businesses and be able to expand what you have, right? So before integration, we had quasi communities. After integration, we have neighborhoods. Before integration, we thought as a group. After integration, we think as individuals. This has to be planned. This has to be planned. Remember, we talk about racism affecting all 9 areas of human activity. So there has to be some planning in this, right? You create the Sambo. When you create the Sambo, and if the programming is correct, the Sambo will automatically do what it needs to do to destroy itself in this community, right? We're going to get more into that, though. Black Americans need to be accepted by white society was greater than their need to be accepted by Black society. Black people needed to be a part of white America. Black people needed their resources, so they thought. Now we see, looking back, that that was a bad idea of Black people having to have what white people had, having to live where white people live. No matter how destructive it is to your own community, no matter the danger you can put yourself and your family in moving into these white communities, Black people had to be in white communities. They had to be in the vicinity of white people. They had to have white-owned products. Like, you remember the story about that Dr. Anderson told about the ice. The gentleman went to the Black store, examined the ice, put it back, went to the white store and brought the ice from the white store because the ice was better at the white store. Go figure, right? But that's that Negro mindset. That's that Sambo. Destructive behaviors. So in developing that true sense of community, a sense of community is the collective thinking, seeing, and behaving as a we, not as a me. Team first, team first, team first, group first, group first, group first, group first, team first, group first. Like, he keeps using examples of other groups of people who come to America and are able to build themselves up, their communities, their race, their people, and have what they need to have for themselves and be able to insulate themselves with their own culture. Don't even have to change their language. Like, I just got back in town. I'm in Miami. I'm in the airport in Miami, and in certain places in Miami down there, people don't even have to learn English. They can just learn. They speak Spanish because the whole communities are insulated. Like, we are, and a lot of this is being built in Black communities, on the edge of Black communities. We're literally seeing people come in with the blueprint for victory. Matter of fact, we have our own blueprint for victory. We have our own blueprint. We just abandoned it. That's why we keep talking about us before integration. That was our blueprint. We just abandoned it.